But we started chipping away slowly, determinedly, day by day, to repair the damage which was done by these factors. And let me say that as far as government finances are concerned, I am a fiscal fundamentalist. I have had absolutely no hesitation in admitting this in my career, that yes, I am a fiscal fundamentalist, because I believe strongly that governments, like households, like families, must learn to live within their means. If they don't, then, like the Nababs of the old, they will leave their families in penury, in poverty, in deprivation, while they would have had a good time. But apart from the social factor, my point is that when you run high deficits in the government, it leads to an economic indiscipline down the line. And the quality of expenditure then suffers. We worked hard to devise, to prepare the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. And that laid down a roadmap of where we should be 5 years from, let's say, 2002-03. And we were coasting along beautifully until we suddenly said goodbye to the FRBM Act, threw it out of the window, and started to take the liberties which we had taken in earlier years with the fisc. Therefore, my first prescription for today is not fiscal expansion, which is what some people are suggesting, and which is what we attempted, and many countries of the world attempted in 2008 when the US financial crisis hit the world. For one thing, we don't have the fiscal space. Like many countries in the world, India does not have a fiscal space. Didn't somebody point out here that we are already, as far as central government's deficit is concerned, we are at around 6%. And the present finance minister, when he was finance minister in his previous incarnation, used his brilliant mind to do what no finance minister had dared to do before him, of putting the deficit, as he said, below the line in the budget. Now, below the line meant what? Below the line meant that if your public sector undertakings in oil, in fertilizer, in food, ran deficits as a result of government's policies, then you allowed them to securitize that deficit, to issue instruments to compensate or recoup that deficit. And as far as the government was concerned, it only assumed the burden of interest. So what was shown above the line was the interest part, and the principal, which was the bulk, was shown below the line. So the principal did not find place in the calculation of the overall deficit. And we said we have achieved this target, that target. All that has come home to roost now. We talked about inflation. Why isn't inflation going down? And especially food inflation. I mean, we are all aware of the fact that in recent years our agricultural production has touched record highs. We are producing in excess of 250 million tons of food grains. But food inflation is stubbornly refusing to go down. Even now it is double digit. And despite all the monetary policy measures that the central bank has taken, food inflation is refusing to moderate. WPI inflation also is in a zone which is a matter of no comfort. Now this is where we started. This is exactly where we started in the NDA regime. And I must tell you here that when we took office in 1998, there is a very distinguished economist of Indian origin in the US, I will not give his name, who said that if anyone in the NDA government knows economics, then I am a Bharatnatyam dancer. And I am glad that we did not know any economics. We had economists and advisors, but nobody in the government could claim that we were all highly distinguished, world-known economists. That was our strength. Because under Mr. Vajpayee's leadership, we brought a level head to tackle the problems of the people. And we understood economics as a common man will understand economics. And Mr. Vig, you will remember what the interest rates were in 1998 and before that. So what is it that we tried to do? First thing that we tried to do was to break this vicious cycle of high inflation and high interest rate. This is the problem today also. Because of the high inflation, the RBI has gone ahead and tightened money policy. They increased rates 13 times in 18 months. Then they brought it down by 50 basis points a few months ago. And now they are watching the situation. And the feeling is that they are not going to reduce the rates anytime soon because inflation is not getting moderated. If inflation does not get moderated, there is no way interest rates can be reduced. And if interest rates are not reduced, then it will be a disincentive for investment. Because nobody would like to borrow. As it is, the cost of doing business in India is very high because of the poor infrastructure that we have and all the rules and regulations that one has to go through. But the cost of money is a major cost of business. I don't have to tell you that. And if that goes up, then profitability of business will decline. And when profitability of business declines, then it will be a huge disincentive for fresh investment. So in any economy, and most certainly in the context of the Indian economy, this vicious cycle has to be demolished. This has to be broken. And this is what we achieved. How? Because we started largely by not monetary measures, by supply side measures. We, when we were in government, moderated the rate of inflation. And I am very proud to say this, that our rate of inflation at the end of our tenure was comparable with the rate of inflation in developed countries. And the economic survey which was presented by Mr. Chidambaram for 2003-04 in 2004 said that India had achieved a structural improvement in the management of inflation, as a result of which inflation has considerably moderated, and we only have to guard against this not going out of hand again. So once you started moderating inflation, then it became easier to tackle high interest rates. And this is what we did. In every budget, we kept chipping away at high interest rates, administered interest rates. Some people felt very unhappy that we were reducing the administered interest rates, but you could not have continued, the government could not have continued to borrow large sums of money in the market at high rates of interest without impacting on interest rates generally, because the government is the largest borrower in the market. So we had to do that, and the RBI then, through its monetary policy measures, started reducing the interest rates. And that was a major trigger for growth. What was the other trigger for growth? The other trigger for growth was a massive emphasis on two sectors. One was housing and the other was infrastructure, physical infrastructure.